So moving on to other topics, let me tell you that, well, there is a mobilization from Russia towards Azerbaijan. There had been several clashes between Russia and Azerbaijan, right? And right now, according to what Ukrainian intelligence says, Moscow is accelerating the increase of troops in Armenia while tensions are rising in Azerbaijan. In other words, they're heading towards Armenia, but it seems like they're aiming at Azerbaijan. Let's get into the details, shall we? At the outset, Ukraine's defense intelligence, the HUR, is reportedly accelerating the strengthening of its military base in Gyumri, Armenia, according to Russia. Just as tensions with the Azerbaijanis are rising.
Just to provide some context in case you missed the news this week. In Russia, in Yekaterinburg, 5 Azerbaijanis were detained and 2 of them lost their lives. And from there, in Azerbaijan, many were detained. Actually, I think all the Sputnik journalists, in fact, Sputnik has already been expelled from Azerbaijan.
A Russian media outlet with the Russian government's narrative.
Yes, super...
Not independent.
Not independent, no, exactly. Super pro-Russian. And from there, it has escalated. Obviously, as they mention here, the Russian base, for example, in Gyumri, is already receiving reinforcements from the Rostov region, from Volgograd, and from Crimea. Just imagine, they're taking people they need in the other war to be here. Pay attention to Azerbaijan.
But what do you think they expect to happen over there in Azerbaijan and in that area? For them to move troops in the middle of a war when they need them the most? I mean, they're seeing something, and if we look over here, I mean, check out where Azerbaijan is, right? They're already on the Turkish and Iranian sides. I mean, they're not that close together, right? Because it is, I mean, there's the Russian border, which is here, a very small border compared to, let's say, all the other borders and the other problems they might have, right? It has had clashes with Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and several other countries in the region. Because let's say what they complain about here in these countries are more or less the same things that we Latin Americans complain about here. When Hispanics, Latin Americans especially, are mistreated, especially those who cross into the United States, especially those who go to work, right? They're mistreated over there. Well, something similar happens. There are certain complaints over there that, well, they treat us like second-class citizens and all those kinds of things. So suddenly some countries have already started demanding respect. We have to remember that, well, all these areas used to be Russian, right? And it's like Putin wants to have, well... Control over all these areas, but they've already shown signs that things are getting out of hand for them, let's say, right?
There's something else the Kremlin is also doing, which is recruiting volunteers. As always, from Caucasian ethnic minorities, like those from North Ossetia or Adygea. That's generally what they do to send people to the war in Ukraine. They always target ethnic groups, the small villages. And, well, the conflict has obviously gotten worse after everything I told you happened this week, right?
Exactly. Well, the Kremlin is already focused on that issue, right? The relations between Russia and Azerbaijan are deteriorating. They probably think this was already planned. I mean, there was already a plan like, let's start heating up the area, so to speak. This move, as always, just happens. Russia already has in mind several potential steps that could happen. So, I mean, of course, there can be surprises. And I mean, just like Ukraine, well, the Azerbaijanis or the Kazakhs or whoever, they also have that way of thinking, right? And if Russia made a move, they also have 2 or 3 steps planned ahead. So what comes next is kind of uncertain, but something could happen. The Ukrainian authorities believe that the deployment also has a tactical distraction effect, as it forces several international actors to split their attention between Ukraine and the South Caucasus. And it could also be that this move is meant to do something in Ukraine.
Exactly. And Armenia too, where those Russian bases are located, is in a tough spot. It depends heavily on Russia, but at the same time it wants to maintain a good relationship with the West, right?
Exactly.
If they put, I would say 3 things, and besides, I don't think he wants to be at war with Azerbaijan.
I don't think so, but how the situation is. And well, everyone's keeping an eye on the area when maybe the important things are going to happen in another region. It says there's a curious, mysterious explosion, let's say. This happened in a Russian area, in a zone. It's a gas pipeline that explodes again, this time in Vladivostok, in the far east of Russia. According to a source from Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence, the damaged gas pipeline supplied Russian military facilities directly, including the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade of the Pacific Fleet. The explosions happened between 1 and 2 in the morning today, July 5th, still July 5th, but almost 24 hours ago, right? It was right at the start of the day when these attacks took place.
Exactly. And well, obviously, recovery and repair teams from the Russian security forces immediately arrived and were deployed in the area, trying to contain the damage and restore the supply, of course. Another incident that happened almost at the same time affected a drinking water pipeline, which was also destroyed in an explosion. This infrastructure, well, supplied several nearby military garrisons. Ukraine's attacks are always extremely precise and targeted at disrupting Russian logistics.
Always thinking about that, but just look at how far they go. Are you referring to movements as far as Vladivostok in the Russian Far East? These movements seem to be getting increasingly distant. Let's see. Now, let's measure it in kilometers. It might be just around the corner, right? No, but you see, there have been attacks even
in Siberia.
Siberia.
Well, the entire cyber attack reached all the way to Siberia.
It was, exactly. One of them went all the way to Siberia. Let's see. I've always found the name Vladivostok to be beautiful. When you talk about it, it's like, what could it be? About, well, I don't know. 3,004, no, well, you're saying it's farther than South Korea, right? Sorry, it's just that we're not seeing it here. I mean, but Vladivostok is, I think, the prettiest name of, look, where is Ukraine? I mean, it's here on this side. Here's Ukraine, right? On this side, you have to cross all of Kazakhstan, Mongolia, here's Korea, look, here's Japan. I mean, they're infiltrators.
They're infiltrators, yes.
Imagine, you're talking about, let's say from here, from this point to this point. It's 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000 kilometers from this little piece. Well, let's say just a rough estimate, right? It's about 8,000 kilometers, yes. I mean, it's almost like an attack, let's say, from here in the Caribbean to Spain, or from Spain to the Caribbean, whichever you prefer. I mean, it's a huge, huge distance. I mean, also, look at the size of Russia, right? That too. But anyway, from one side to the other. Impressive attack, assuming it was an attack, which I suppose it was, because there were explosions in a strategic area. And the one reporting it is Ukrainian intelligence. What does that tell you? Well, that it was the Ukrainians. Anything else about this? Well, over there in Venezuela, where they're either working on or planning to build missiles and anti-drones, Venezuelan-made missiles and anti-drones would also be in progress, according to reports. So, are they going to manufacture them or buy them? What's the situation? Develop them?
They're going to develop them, but honestly, they already do this. I mean, they already make Russian weapons.
Okay.
Several of you have told us about this. Those of you who live in Venezuela. But well, now they're making an announcement. Oh, surprise! Now we're going to develop a missile and anti-missile system as part of their national defense strategy. No one is attacking them. They just make up these demons, according to them. But really, no one even pays attention to them. And this was announced during the ceremony for the 214th anniversary of independence. Maduro stated that Venezuela needed to have more military strength. By land, air, sea, rivers, mountains, and jungles. It's also a bit like trying to cover up the message that María Corina released today, which was directly addressed to the military.
Let's listen to María Corina's message there on social media.
The choice of July 5th as National Armed Forces Day is no coincidence. It's a connection to emphasize that the military institution was not only a decisive element in achieving independence, but its very purpose is to uphold it forever. National independence and armed forces are terms united in our history. This reminder is essential. The fragility of our independence today goes hand in hand with the deterioration of the military institution. During 25 years of autocratic rule, Venezuela has been handed over to foreign forces. Cuba, Russia, Iran, China, as well as terrorist organizations like the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia and the National Liberation Army, Hezbollah and Hamas.
Well, part of the message is a little long, but I do find the points she's making very interesting. Obviously, the Maduro regime has become, well, not just close to, let's say, non-democratic governments, but even to terrorist groups, I mean, widely known ones. So it's a huge issue. And well, once again, as they say, it hits a sore spot. A topic that, well, now Maduro comes out and says they're developing missiles. Well,
First, feed your people.
but also the warning, I think, isn't just for Venezuelans, but also for the world. So that they say, hey, there's a problem going over there, and if they let it keep growing, it could turn into another North Korea. I mean, later on, they might say that now, you know what, now they also have weapons of destruction. Now, you know what I mean? Like, they might start bringing something out over there.
María Corina has mentioned several times how dangerous it is to have a Russian base for Hezbollah and Hamas. A breeding ground for them in America that is so close to the United States.
And to Mexico, Brazil, and any other country. Because in the end, them being seen as the enemy, well, they can...
Well, Argentina.
Argentina, exactly. Let's move on to other matters. Greetings to Ricardo over there, all the way to Panama, to Gabriel, to Marvin.
Here I have the answers to your questions.
He says, is it true that there is an exchange of weapons with allied countries like Russia, with North Korea, or... Let's add Venezuela and Cuba, he says. Marvin, how are you, Marvin? A big greeting to Ben. How have you been? He says Trump is already after Maduro's head. He says, Venezuela is making weapons for Russia. It's like North Korea. Marcella is saying this. Greetings, Marcella. Angelica, how have you been? Good afternoon. Astrid says, so glad you're still alive. I thought we had several unexpected things come up and we ended up leaving pretty late, but here we are. Very happy to be here. The weekend. Well, you know, we try to do things we usually can't during the week. And today really did run long. She says Mexico's president supports Maduro and other dictators, so the country doesn't need to worry. Alpha, greetings. Greetings, Alpha. Greetings. Beatrice, she says Venezuela has had a Kalashnikov rifle factory for years.
Kalashnikov, yes, and also a factory for Shahed drones. It's already been said that they're also made there in Venezuela. And Marvin also asked, how is Claudia Scheinbaum's approval rating? And here it is from 3 different pollsters. In May, one gave her 83%. In May as well, another pollster gave her 73%. And right now, for example, El Financiero in June gave her 76% approval.
She has a lot of support, and that's even though El Financiero, it's very critical of the president, but she does have support. She has support, that's for sure. And above all, interestingly, the thing is that things have been done that the previous president simply didn't want to do. The issue of fuel theft and organized crime. Different things are being done, and while it may not be enough, efforts are being made. Well, I follow several analysts there, specifically on the topic of organized crime, and well, at least they do see that there is a change. Well, the restructuring they're doing right now in the organized crime groups. What's coming regarding this matter? The tons and tons they've been taking out. It seems to me that at least something is being done there. Which I insist, there's still a long way to go, definitely a long way to go, but I do think there's kind of a turning point in that sense. That absolutely nothing was done in the previous term. But there are many other areas in which they are actually quite similar to the previous term. So that's one of the things that keeps her popular with many sectors. And clearly, well, the polls, that's where you can see it. The social aspect, let's say the part with support programs, scholarships, all of that which gives many people strong support. Both the previous one and the current one.
Yes, exactly. Estrellita Ale. The plane passengers were Iranian, including 2 believed to be from the Revolutionary Guard, not just ordinary Iranians. And the other question someone asked, I think it was also Marvin, how much did Andrés Manuel López Obrador make and how much does Sheinbaum make now? Andrés Manuel López Obrador in 2024 earned 129,432 pesos. 129,432 pesos.
Which would be, wait, let's put it in dollars because a lot of people don't.
Yes.
129,432 Mexican pesos.
About $6,000 a six. It's just that the dollar is lower, so like $7,000 maybe.
Yeah, around there. Let's say 7,000.
About $7,000 more or less.
And then Sheinbaum is currently earning 134,290 Mexican pesos.
Around there, it's a little more than 7,000, 7,500, but well, it's around there.
That would be the question.
Yes, $7,000. How much did you say the president of Peru earns? How are the salaries over there? In case someone wants to run for president over there, he says in Mexico, we already have Venezuelan and Colombian paramilitaries entering all across the country. Stay sharp, my people, and they applaud Chilindrina, says Verderi. Greetings, Verderi. Marlene, how are you? Greetings. Cabal, it's already Sunday. Is it? Awesome. How are you, Panterita? Marvin, how have you been? Greetings. To the whole community, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next point. So there are also several major issues with what's happening in Texas. There's, well, an update on the topic where things have been really tragic. We have to remember, just to quickly summarize what happened, right? It rained so hard that in 45 minutes, the water in the Guadalupe River rose 8 meters there in Texas. 8 meters in 45 minutes. I mean, by the time you call the rescuers and all that, the river was already 8 meters higher. Impressive. Another thing is that in 3 hours, it rained as much as it usually does in 3 months during this season. So there was also a tremendous downpour. So in the area where the rain was falling, 800 camper kids, it's summer, and well, it's typical for them to go camping and all that. I don't know if they're Boy Scouts or what.
They're Christians.
800 kids. 800, according to the number I have. Although I've seen some reports mention 750, so it varies. But somewhere between 700 and 800 kids were there, and they got caught in the extremely heavy rain. Even if you see the forecast, it's hard to imagine. You see the clouds, but it doesn't seem like a hurricane. It's difficult to predict right now. We must ask, what is the population?
The latest report states that at least 43 people have died, including 15 minors. And well, according to the county sheriff says that out of these people, 5 adults and 3 children have not been identified, meaning no one knows who they are. At least 27 minors from Camp Mystic, this Christian camp, are still missing. 27?
27 children.
Girls
missing, apart from the 43 who have already died. And there are some testimonies of
2 Mexican girls.
2 Mexican girls who were there.
Yes, they are 2 19-year-old Mexican girls who were the typical ones assigned to look after the younger ones. And they say that suddenly it started raining really, really hard, so much that at one point the power went out. And they started looking for all the other girls they thought might be at risk. And they took them to the cabin, which was, well, the tallest one, the one they saw as the tallest. They wrote all their names on their arms and gave them identification just in case something happened at that point. And well, there were 20 girls that they managed to rescue, but the situation was really, really tough, and it took the authorities a long time to arrive.
That's awful. And really, how do you even get there? I mean, okay, you get the alert like, hey, there are 800 kids here. How do you get through? I mean, if a river rises 8 meters, there's no way to cross. I mean, it must be overwhelming. These phenomena, well, how many years have we been dealing with this, right? But these phenomena, well, they've been warning about them for a very long time, right? I mean, when you look at the monthly or quarterly average or just the average, you don't see it. The sudden impact it has when it brings so much water in just 3 hours, right? That famous sudden rain is a phenomenon that's being studied a lot because it's a phenomenon that didn't used to happen at this magnitude. There can be very heavy rains, but are those the rains of the century, like the one that happened recently in China? The rain from a couple days ago was the heaviest in a century. However, intense rains like that are now occurring more frequently, not just once a century. Well, suddenly in certain areas every 2 or 3 years, like last year in Missouri. Do you remember? In a rain similar to this one, about 24 people also died. We were honestly shocked. How is it possible that during a rainstorm? How is it possible that a rainstorm, when Biden was still in office, right? That so many people can die in a rainstorm. I mean, like during a hurricane, suddenly 3 or 4 people is already a lot. And now, this time, 47 people, and it's probably going to be quite a few more, right?
Exactly. Someone tells us how much the president of Peru makes, but they give it to us in sols. That's the currency they use in Peru. That would be 35,658.
Okay.
In dollars, so everyone understands, it would be $10,000 to round it up.
The president in Peru earns more than the one in Mexico. Yes, several $1,000s more. Just look at that.
And now I wonder if what happened in Texas is due to a lack of information, because we didn't see any reports saying that heavy rain was coming. Or maybe it's because the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration doesn't have enough budget.
Well, yeah, there was the usual alert about heavy rain coming, but no, not at that level. Kind of like what happened in Valencia too.
But in Valencia, there was an alert.
Yes, but it wasn't an alert to evacuate and move. I mean, no, it was more like, well, yes, I mean, it could be that it's going to be heavy. Yes, it's going to be heavy. Yes. But almost every storm, well, they issue this alert, so people kind of get too confident. And suddenly not knowing the areas that get flooded in that city.
For example, the rivers always fill up. If the camp was there, near the river, well, I think they should have been warned. Considering they're all minors.
Yeah, I mean... And how that amount went unnoticed, well, that definitely needs to be investigated. You can't skimp on budgets, especially when you're a powerhouse like the United States. Skimping on budgets at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, at the Hurricane Warning Center, you need to have enough budget to spare so meteorologists can focus on their work on preventing these kinds of disasters. Because if not, well, I mean, it's not like firefighters and emergency responders are going to just guess when something serious is coming, right? They have to base it on something. So, yes, it's tough. It's really intense. Let's move on to other matters. Let's go to the comments.